Hello, fans of the modular shed. So today I want to talk about screws. So let's go inside the shed and look at all the different screws I used to hold this thing together. I'll just turn off the heater so that you'll be able to hear me. Pretty much the entire shed is held together with these screws. I bought these sets of Work Zone premium screws. I'm not sure they're that premium. These I've marked most used, and well, they're all the small ones because this shed is pretty much held together with tiny screws. There are a few exceptions, but mostly it was the tiniest of these screws. There are a few of these. These proved to be no good, and so I stopped using them. Quite a lot of these, but none of the big ones. The big ones I just didn't use. So here you can see I've marked this one least used, and although these are all the tiniest screws, I did use a few of these, but quite a lot of those left over. They've all been sort of shuffled around in the 6 boxes of screws that I bought, but these big ones I barely used at all, so I've got a lot of those left over. There are a few brad nails in here because the wall panels I tended to brad nail on first and then screw after, and then actually take the brad nails back out. So let's start with the post extensions. These 4-inch square or 100mm square posts are attached to each other with these nail plates, and this is a pretty small screw, I'm fairly certain. Up there, more nail plates which hold the rafters to the post extension, that short piece of 100mm square post. Again, very small screws used in those nail plates. And you can see on the inside of the door here, once again, it's all nail plates holding it together. So I've got half a dozen screws in each of these nail plates. These joist hanger brackets, once again, small screws in there, small screws in there. And these angle brackets there, I mean, there are 12 screws in there, so that's what gives it its strength. But they're all tiny, they're not big screws. Now there's one screw in amongst this lot which proved to be no good in the end, and it's this one. And so I stopped using it. What happened was it just broke off on the narrow section up there. And this was when I used them to hold the what's it called, feather edge onto the sides of the shed. We'll just pop outside to see that. So for example, this feather edge here, you can see that I've got a black japanned drywall screw, 45mm length, but there's a little hole underneath it where I previously had one of those sort of gold colour screws, and up here again the gold colour screw is there. And of course I learnt my lesson on splitting wood. When you put a screw through here holding the two pieces of wood together, then as it expands and contracts, it will crack the wood underneath, which is why I stopped using that and started using this, where it's above the top of the piece underneath. But that's a 45mm drywall screw. Drywall screws here, that one's been superseded because a lot of these just broke halfway down that shaft. Here are the tops of 2 of those long arm joist hangers. So the main joist that's supporting the floor frame is hanging on these, and these screws here are, I believe they're these. So they're not massive. They're, I think, probably 3-point-something mil. In fact, I think they're listed here. It's probably, oh no, they're probably the 4x30s. Yes, I think that's the screws that I used to hold the joist hangers up. So the entire floor is suspended on those joist hangers using lots of quite small screws. And on these battens which pull the wall panels in, these are my puller brackets. You can see that again is using an angle bracket with, again, relatively small screws. I think it's these, which are only 20mm long. I think they're the 3.5mm diameter. So as I say, these screws prove to be dangerous to use because they just break. But the 45mm drywall screws, these black japanned ones, which came from Wilko, they're just Wilko pick and mix in a large bag. These have proved to be fine, they're not breaking. Maybe they're just a little bit thicker at the top there. Also from Wilko are the other major screw that I used, and these are decking screws. I've got green and gold. The green ones I use to hold the roof panels down onto the roof battens. I may be able to show that. Yes, let me see if I can find some. Yes, there you can see that's that green screw coming down through a special rubber washer on the top of the roofing material and down into this batten. So that's what's holding the roofing material down. And then also from Wilko were these sort of gold coloured decking screws, and they are in the floorboards. So they're holding the floorboards down onto the floor joists. The only other type screw type thing I'm using are these hooks, which I'm just screwing into the joists, basically just to hang rubbish from, to keep it up off the floor and off my working areas, because I'm running out of space already. This shed does definitely need to be extended out that way as soon as the weather next spring is clement, to double the size of this place. But now that I've established the methods of sort of screwing everything together, getting joists to attach to upright posts, and cross beams and roofing support battens, which also support my lighting elements, all with these relatively small screws, it shouldn't take too long to expand this shed. So that's about it really in terms of screws. The gold coloured screws in these came from Aldi, these Work Zone premium screw kits. Now I could have got all these small screws from Wilko in their pick and mix section. I don't know whether they would have been better or worse than these, but certainly the Wilko black drywall screws and the decking timber screws are perfectly adequate, and that's pretty much all the screws that I've used in the build of this shed. So very few large screws. This entire shed was held together with tiny little screws, but lots of them. It wouldn't surprise me if the modular shed had, I don't know, something like 1,000 screws holding it together, but all little. Goodbye.